En John 17:30, en Juan 17:13. Si sabéis estas cosas, bienaventurados seréis, si les hiciereis. No hablo de todos vosotros, yo sé a quienes he elegido, mas para que se cumpla la Escritura. El que come pan conmigo, levanta contra mí su calcañar, desde ahora os le digo antes que suceda, para que cuando suceda, creáis que yo soy.
And it is so good to be here together tonight. If you're visiting with us, we thank you for your visit. We appreciate you taking time out of your day to come and worship with us together. Tonight we're going to be discussing a recent trip that I took down to Mexico with my family, as well as the participation that y'all had in that effort. This is something that many people have asked since I've come back, and even today, Debbie Elkins asked me this morning, how did you feel about your trip to Mexico? It's such a hard thing to process and digest, and so this is good for me. This is something that I hope will be good for you too, to kind of be able to work through that process with me, and at the end of it, we can all kind of give an assessment of the work that was done, again, knowing that y'all were in fellowship the whole time in this endeavor. So this is probably the nicest thing in Reynosa, which is why it's my title slide. This is in the town square. And I just want to explain what's going on in this picture. So first of all, this is their welcome sign. But if you go just 2 blocks up here is where you face the border. To this side is where you're going to find the river, the Rio Grande. And the drug dealers hang out over here. And then towards this area, so where we would be, is kind of where all the poverty of the city initially hits. And I only say that to kind of give you the reality of what they're going through in this area. I didn't go to vacation. I didn't go to a paradise. I went to a desert. And I went to a place that needs the gospel. And I went to a place where our brethren currently are worshiping. So as I said, kind of the area where we are is where the poverty's at. So 2 blocks away from this sign, one of our brothers has a shoe shop that his family has had for generations. His brother owns a shoe shop in that same area. And that's where they go every single day. And that's where they've been going since they were children, to go work and to try and make a living for their family. And you're going to see some presentations of that. But the other thing that I think is important to understand Reynosa, 2 weeks before I got there, this is what was going on in the city. They had an immense flooding because they had gotten a ton of rain that was unexpected. Now, about every 10 to 15 years, they expect to receive flooding, where they lose everything in their house. That since then has happened about every 5 to 6 years. So some of the brethren, when we got there, the week before we got there, they were still cleaning out their houses because of the flooding. And I want you to take a special note of this greenhouse right here. That'll come back into play later on in this presentation. But this is a wall. So this is the second story, or the second part of the house. And then you can see all the damage that happened. This is Victor and Elizabeth's house, so the house where my family and Lauren and I stayed, again, just a couple weeks prior to our arrival. I'm really glad Sean McGrath isn't here right now, because he would be thinking mold, mold, mold. And he's right. There's a lot of stuff that people are still dealing with, and this is just their daily living conditions. Speaking of living conditions, this is what our day-to-day looked like. Chelsea would spend a lot of time at this kitchen table with the children. She would most likely be here, and she would be crying because they're doing math. But our kids did do school while they were away. Again, think about this area not having yards. So imagine like your house, and we'll see pictures momentarily. Like in front of your house, you just have cement and dirt. Kids don't go outside and play. They're not really like places to do that. There's broken glass everywhere. There are stray dogs everywhere. There are stray cats everywhere. So the family had provided a treadmill, and so every day I would have the kids spend time on the treadmill. I would spend time on the treadmill. They would hang out in this living room. This is Elizabeth, by the way. She was in heaven. She has since then texted me many times to say, my house is way too quiet. I need grandchildren right now. So this was our sleeping arrangement as well. For the first week, while Lauren was visiting there as well, helping us out in the work, my family and I shared this bedroom. So all the kids slept on an inflatable mattress, and I shared a bedroom with them. And this is, I would think, one of the things that surprised me and helped me have a lot of sympathy for my wife. I had to spend 24 hours a day with my children. Like, that's a lot. I started having a greater appreciation for what my wife does because it is nonstop. There's just a lot that goes into rearing children, and things that I understand now happen when I go to gospel meetings. So when I go to a gospel meeting for a week, and I'll call her and I'll tell her, hey, like today was an amazing day. These brethren were encouraged. These good things happen. I now understand why she is just trying to process her day. Like it's just a lot. But again, I think it's really great to put your kids in these kinds of situations, to put families in these situations where you can go through hard things together. And I think it helps you have a better understanding of one another. That was one of the benefits as well, that I think my wife finally got to understand some of the struggles that you'll see as we go through this presentation come up when you do this kind of work, especially down in Mexico. But here we spent a lot of time at this kitchen table. This was kind of like our nucleus or our Mecca where we would come to every day. I think my kids were FaceTiming Tanya at that moment. So Tanya grown, that's why they're so happy. And then I want to explain also the culture of Reynosa. So every Sunday morning after services, a guy selling elotes, or a family selling elotes, corn, comes outside the building. So imagine we get done with worship, we go outside, and there's a cart waiting for us, waiting to sell. This family in particular, they switch off because they are all Pentecostal believers, Pentecostal brethren, Pentecostal worshipers, Christ followers. But they take turns coming to Reynosa here, and it provides a unique opportunity, I think, to present the gospel to people that maybe have differentiating opinions on doctrine, as Josh spoke about this morning. But notice what happens in this next sets of pictures here. So the brethren are doing a potluck here. This is in someone's driveway. They just put out folding chairs and tables. During this potluck too, the young men are the ones in charge of pouring drinks and taking drinks to people. So during a potluck, like, it's not, all right, young people, you guys are the last ones to go through the line. It's no, young people, like, you're going to serve everyone, and then you'll go through the line last. And the young ladies are the ones that are serving the food out to the brethren. So everyone's participating in doing this. Now, they don't call them potlucks in Spanish. The word in Spanish is convivio. Literally, it means living together or living with one another. And I love that concept because you really see that in action. You see people serving each other. So the elderly people don't even go through the line, because brethren will come, fix them a plate, and then bring it to them. It is living together is literally what the word translates to. Here's a picture of Elizabeth and Victor's house, where again, this is the living room that we saw earlier, but you just have a card table set up, and over here is that table where we would do school. This brethren's house, this is one of the deacons, Ricardo, his house the week before we got there, and he was thankful we stayed for as long as we did, because otherwise we wouldn't have been able to be to his house. His house never dried. He was scooping out water, and he was desperately trying to get the water out of his house so that he could invite us over for a meal just by setting up these tables. This is another brother and his wife. He traveled 4 hours to meet his wife, and I was like, how did that story come about? Well, there was a gospel meeting. And I was like, dude, no one goes to a gospel meeting who's not looking for a wife. Like, you were looking for a wife, you're going to travel 4 hours for a meeting. He's like, yeah, that's basically it. But again, they have a tiny one-bedroom house. This is their living room. This is their kitchen area. But they just put out a little table for us. So we are sitting on the couches back there. So that's their couch, that's their table. And they put out a couple more chairs. After services, we went together out to eat with this brother, who is the one that started the congregation. This is the elder Victor that we stayed with, and his wife Elizabeth. He has an amazing story. He was a professional wrestler when he came to learn about the gospel. And then in becoming a Christian, he realized he could not continue wrestling. So he decided he was going to go work for the city. Now, his wife here, Elena, she, every time I go, wants to buy me an elote. And I tell her no 3 times, and I always end up getting the biggest cup of elote that they sell. She will not take no for an answer, but she has a cool story, because this is her, or this is their daughter. So, and this is the other, one of the other deacons, Israel. So Israel is married to Sarah. Sarah is the daughter of these two. Sarah became a Christian, and when she became a Christian, her mother said to her, like, you're dead to me. Like, if you become a Christian, we're not going to continue having a relationship. And she put on Christ, and as a result, like, her mother was like, you're dead to me. She then was able to convert her father, and her mother said, Elena said to her husband, if you become a Christian, we're done. Marriage is over. He became a Christian. Took her 3 years to obey the gospel. And I asked her, well, what did it? Like, what convinced you? Was it your husband? Was it studies? She said it was the consistency of Sarah. And I was like, what do you mean by the consistency of Sarah? She said, not only was Sarah diligent to like be at services, but whenever she did something that was unchristian-like, she would come and apologize to me. And she would say, I'm not being a good example to you. 3 years of that, she's like, I realized I needed to probably learn more about this Christianity thing. Now, Sarah, her husband Israel grew up in the church. Israel was a faithful Christian up until he turned 18. And when he turned 18, he left Christianity. He said he went to the world, got involved in a bunch of things. He was very jaded when it came to Christianity and religion in general. When his wife became a Christian, she started bringing him. And he would sporadically show up. And again, I was like, well, what did it for you? And he said, Sarah's consistency. Sarah's consistency, it was what brought him back to the Lord in 2008. He came back to the Lord, was restored, repented, and is now one of their deacons. Consistency, guys, like one of the best forms of evangelism you can have is just being deliberate about what you're doing. This is their daughter, Sarah. America. This is Sarah's daughter, America. America was one of the young ladies I baptized on my first trip out to Reynosa. So that's a little bit about that picture. Here's another photo of us eating. And the reason I bring this up, why do you have so many pictures of you eating? So in Reynosa, they don't do anything. There's no bowling, there's no like mini golf, there's no parks. it's a desert wasteland. There's nothing to do. So what do? You eat with people. When you date, you eat in different places, they said. Now, when you think about eating, like maybe you think about your home and you think about being hospitable. And some of you are like, well, I can't be hospitable. I don't have a home. These ladies made my family eggs. After Wednesday night, they invited us over to have dinner at their house. They made eggs. That was their dinner for us. This is another lady's kitchen, who I'll talk about later. Like, that's her kitchen. Stove, oven, that's her sink. And this is just a little area where she can rest stuff. If you don't have a kitchen, sometimes you get creative and you have your husband build you a place where you can boil a massive pot of water. Now, I wish I had like myself in perspective. This pot is like this big. It is massive. And when you are being hospitable, sometimes you don't have the time to clean. Who cares? It's not about putting on a front of hospitality. It's about being together. It's about convivio. It's about living together. So hopefully this inspires you a little bit to know that hospitality, being together with brethren, doesn't have to be something that is crazy ornate or requires a lot. Like, it is very simple. Now, maybe you say, I don't have a house. I don't know how to cook. These people took us to Carl's Jr. And they took us to Carl's Jr. because Carl's Jr. has a play place. And they were like, hey, you have kids? We want them to run around. Let's go to Carl's Jr. Doesn't take much, brethren. It does not take much to be hospitable. This young man is Brian. Brian was baptized the Wednesday before we went out. So this picture was on a Friday. So 2 days earlier, he became a Christian. So that's Brian, and we'll talk about him later. Evangelism in Reynosa is a very unique thing, and that's why I went in April. So some of you I didn't get to have this conversation with, but I'm having now. Why April? Why a month? So I've been to Reynosa. This is now my fourth time going, first time that my family joins me. The last time I was in Reynosa, the congregation seemed a little deflated. They had lost their zeal. There was a lady that I had invited to worship with us that day. She came, and one, maybe two people talked to her, and she was an obvious visitor. And I was like, man, I feel like my brethren have lost their zeal. They've lost their passion, because they have been without a they have been without a preacher now for a year and a half. The man who started the congregation, he's retired now. He can't continue on preaching, and they've been looking for a preacher this whole time. So the last time I was there, like I said, it seemed like they had lost a little bit of their zeal. And I talked to a couple of them, like, hey, what if I decided to come back? And they were like, what do you mean by that? And I was like, I don't know. Like, what if I could come back and like help encourage y'all? And they're like, I don't know, like, seems like a good idea. So I went and talked to my wife that night. My wife was like, we need to go and be there. And we need to be there for a month if they'll have us. It was my wife's idea. And I was like, no, that's too long. And she's like, you really need to do this. She's like, we really need to do this. So I went back and I talked to the brethren. And I was like, hey, brethren, what do you think about me being here for a month next year with my family? And they were all for it. Now I asked, if I come for a month, we need to be working the whole time. I'll explain why I regret saying that momentarily, but we need to be working the whole time. When would be the best time to come? When are people out and when are people willing to listen? And they're like, come in April. It's the nicest time of the year. People sit outside. We can go evangelizing. It will be super convenient. So that was the plan. And again, this idea to go for a month long is not my idea. It wasn't something that I decided was going to happen for my family. It was something my wife wanted to do, something my wife encouraged me to do. So sidebar, young people, whatever that means for this side of the room, maybe this side of the room too, young people, who you marry is so important. Marry someone that's going to push you to think of others. So we spent time evangelizing. Elizabeth, Victor's wife, so that's who we stayed with, one of the elders' wives, she makes me look like I'm a normal person when we go out evangelizing. That's how intense she is. But we went out with Callie and Briella and Kason and Mila, and literally it's just finding doors that aren't closed and just shouting like, hey, anyone home? And then you invite them. This is a meeting that Salvador put together with one of his co-workers. His co-worker is, hold on, give me a second. His co-worker, he has been everything. He's been Pentecostal. Currently, he's Mormon. But he's been Pentecostal, he's been Baptist, he's been Catholic, and right now he's Mormon. So Salvador set up a study with us. And in this study, I just asked him, like, why have you bounced around from kind of denomination to denomination? And that conversation led us to have a great conversation about truth and consistency. And so we started studying Galatians at this study. So this study happened on Friday. This study happened on Tuesday. And we got done studying Galatians, and he was so intrigued. He was like, this seems right. And I was like, well, maybe it is. Like, let's keep studying. Would you be interested in coming to services tomorrow? I'm actually going to be covering a sermon on connecting the next generation, because he has 3 daughters. I'll show you here momentarily. And he was like, that'd be great. I'll be there. He has continued worshiping with the brethren in Reynosa since our leaving. And we're going to get together online this week to continue studying the book of Galatians, as well as Hebrews, because he was like, I've been reading Hebrews, and it seems like something I should study. And I was like, absolutely, you should study Hebrews. Like, that's a very good book to study. So while, again, my kids spending some time evangelizing, there was some men picking up trash. We took time to just talk to them, invited them to the meeting as well. Someone working on their car in their yard, the kids ran up. Kason, I was so proud of him. Out of all my kids, he's probably the most shy, but I don't know, it was cool to see him get over his fear and do some door knocking and want to like leave these invitations for people. So I was really proud of him. One day, this is the other elder's wife, Luz. She wanted to go to the hospital. She wanted to go to the hospital and just pray for people. She's like, and you can't, here there are no waiting rooms inside the hospital, so everyone waits outside. She's like, it's a great place to go and just find people who have needs. Can we go and evangelize there? I want to see how you do it. And this is where I was like, well, I've never done this. But I thought about people like Joseph Sullivan. And I got inspired. And I got motivated. And I was like, well, what would Joseph do? How would he approach people? How would he talk about people, or talk about Christ to people? And I went and did something I had never done. And as you can tell, the receptions were amazing. Every person we talked to wanted prayers. They wanted to hear something from us. Now this guy, his name is Jesus Angel. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Jesus Angel. Jesus Angel is 34. So I met him the first time I went to Reynosa. Jesus Angel found out that we were the same age. And he was like, you're preaching? And I was like, yeah. He's like, but you're my age. I was like, yeah, I've been preaching for, at that time, it would have been for about 11 years. I was like, and he's like, wow, that's incredible. We started studying, and he was like, I think I want to be a preacher. He's like, and he didn't say it like this, but if you can do it, He's like, it's cool to see someone my age be involved in this work. So he's been working towards being a preacher. He when I left, had told the elders he wants to fill in that full-time preacher role, and he's asking for them to consider him, and right now they're going to try to support him in that so that he can do that. But I want to tell you what impressed me about Jesus Angel. Jesus Angel is a plumber. Now, plumbing over there is not the same as plumbing over here. Over there, he works for a company. When you get a job, you got to go do the job. meaning he's not always available to be at services on Wednesdays or Sundays. Because if you're going to be a plumber, usually your hours in Mexico are from like 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., or they can be from 7 a.m. To about, he said, like 5 p.m. So when he's scheduled to work on a Sunday, this is what he does, and this is what impressed me the most about him. He finds someone to take his position. But here's the thing. In order for him to find someone to take his position, he has to pay them so that they will take his shift. Because he can't miss work, but he has to do the work. And you're like, all right, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I'm like, absolutely, it doesn't make sense. And I was like, Jesus, like, so you pay someone to work in your place, and they still get paid what you're going to get paid? He's like, yeah. He's like, because otherwise people won't take your job. And I was like, how much do you pay them? He pays them $80, which on a job day, he might make $100. He pays them $80 so that he can be at worship. And I was ashamed. I was like, I would not pay $80 to go to worship. Seems like a lot. But he wants to be with the brethren. He doesn't want to forsake the assembly. And he wants to be there to encourage and to support them. So he's like, if I have to pay $80, like that's what it costs. There's no way around it. While I was doing that study in Galatians with that man, my kids got together with his kids. He's got 3 daughters. Okay, we got Charlie over here. Where are the other kids? I know. Okay, we got one there. Where are the other kids? We got one here. Got one. I think sometimes, hopefully you're not offended, Ethan, I'm going to lump you in with the kids. Okay, so I think sometimes, like, when you think about, like, kids, you're like, what can I do in evangelism? You can grab a soccer ball and go play in the street, and that's evangelism. Now, maybe your parents are like, don't play in the street, but, like, there's no other option, right? And I bring that up to say, like, everyone working together is part of what evangelism is about. And it's part about what these trips are about. If my kids don't take time to like play with these children, and you think like what I do doesn't contribute to the work, like this guy doesn't get to study the book of Galatians, and this guy continues worshiping with false doctrine. So everyone has a part to play in evangelism. While I was at the hospital, I took time to play with this boy. So this man is named Sergio, and this is his son. His son is, he said like autistic, ADD, ADHD, but he's got a short attention span. So I played with him while Jesus and Luz got to pray with Sergio and also invite him to worship. Again, this is Luz spending time in prayer with these women. And this is what I did most of the time. Now, you remember that greenhouse I told you about that was flooded? That's this lady's house. So Salvador, those were pictures from his house. This is her house. And you can tell where the water hit to the top of her house. We went over and I was just like, hey, do you have time to read the Bible? And she was like, sure. And so this is her mom. And we just spent time in a Bible study together. This is Victor and I studying with this lady named Anna. It was about 9:30 on Sunday night. I'd worked all day. I was pretty exhausted. And Anna texted. And she was like, hey, can we do that Bible study now? I was like, what time are you thinking? And I was hoping that she was going to say, like, maybe sometime in the morning, like, oh, it's too late, Because I was like, what time are you thinking? Like, she was like, can we do 10:30? And I was like, all right. So we'll get there at 10:30. We'll leave there at 11:30. And I was like, that's fine. Like, I'll go. Victor is a lawyer. So this is one of the elders there, again, that we stayed with. Victor's a lawyer. I told him about the study. I was like, hey, I'm going to go to this study with my family. It's at 10:30. We probably won't get out till like about midnight or so. Like, you don't have to come, because the next day he has to wake up at 5:30 to go to work. I was like, you don't have to come. Like, you can just hang out. He's like, I'm gonna go. And so he went. And yeah, we were there till a little after midnight. And the next day he got up and went to work. And I was just like, what a beast. My first week there, I spent every single day with the brethren. So my family and I landed on Thursday. Thursday, we got to the building. We started a women's study where we studied Titus. Friday, I did an online study in the book of Jonah. Saturday, we got together to start Ephesians. Sunday, we started a gospel meeting where I started teaching through the book of Philippians. So from Sunday all the way through the next Saturday, I saw the brethren every single day. It was the coolest thing to me because it felt like the first century church. And that was probably the first time in my life that I felt like things were right. Like this is what God intended for his people to do. Then after the first week, we drove down south to San Miguel, which is about it's a 12-hour drive that you can do in 9. I'm going to show you why you can do it in 9. So while you're driving, everyone has this imaginary middle lane that you create. So you can put on your turn signal and drive into oncoming traffic, and the oncoming traffic knows to get out of the way. And so this is why a 12-hour drive you can do in 9 hours. I'm driving, Chelsea's videoing, and now we're in the imaginary middle lane. Oh, there's a semi coming at you at 80 miles an hour. So just crazy driving conditions. We got to San Miguel. We met with this sister named Gloria. Now, Gloria is illiterate. She can't read or write, but she has a husband who's not a Christian. So what she does is she takes notes and highlights Bible passages that the guy is preaching on and shows them to her husband so that he can read them. And she just has pages and pages and pages of notes. She's been married for 20 years, and her husband still seems to have no interest in the gospel, but she does all this for him. This is the brother who is over the work in San Miguel. He's supported by our brethren up in Atlanta at Embry Hills. This is the main cathedral in San Miguel. So it's a really famous touristy area. A lot of people come to visit this cathedral, and we were over there during the week of Easter. So they have a whole program for the city for that week. So, and this is like a major production. So you'll go through the city, you'll see Jesus being marched through the city, you'll see him being crucified, you'll see all kinds of things. Again, people want to worship during that time at all these different kinds of cathedrals. This is the church in San Miguel. So we pulled up, and I really thought we were pulling into an abandoned building. And they're like, oh, this is the church building. I was like, oh, okay. So that's what it looks like from the outside, and this is what they've done with it on the inside. So there's kind of like I got up to the second floor to get an aerial view of the church. But that's what the church building looks like. But again, this is what all the houses there look like. Every house looks abandoned. Every house looks like no one lives there. And then you happen to get inside, and there are people living in those conditions. So again, when you think of the work that my family and I were doing in Mexico, we're not in paradise. We're not in like the nice parts of Mexico that I think a lot of people think of. This was, this is our brethren's living conditions. Dogs everywhere. Like if you want a dog, go to Mexico. They are everywhere. While I was in San Miguel, I did a youth weekend. Now, what youth weekend means is you start preaching on Friday. So Friday you start preaching. They have an evening meal, so you get home a little after midnight because you always eat after services. So we're going to bed about 1:30. The next day you wake up at 7, you go have breakfast, and then you start all day teaching. So I taught from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. About 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then there were 3 breaks. And during those breaks, I was told in the moment, so as I was leaving the house the night before, one of the brethren was like, hey, you need to do some activities tomorrow with the young people. I was like, what? It's like, what do I do? So we called Lauren Chapeau, and we were like, hey, Lauren, what do you do in Friends that gets people together? She gave us some ideas. Now, why do I have this picture? Because these balloons came from Daphne Edwards. Like, what a blessing from God that she happened to give us balloons that we could use as we are studying and then trying to keep these people, these teenagers awake. During the study too, I also had a breakout session where I took the young men, my wife took the young women, and we had been studying on confession using Psalm 3, and these are the groups that we got together with. So we got together, and I practiced confession. I say practice. We had prayer and confession time with the young men, and she did that with the young women. And the young men said they had never in their lives confessed a sin to anybody. That was the first time in their lives they had practiced confession. And it was the coolest thing to witness, their hearts becoming softer and softer with each person. This brother sitting in the middle, he preaches about 2 hours away from San Miguel in a place that they call San Francisco. Again, not the same San Francisco, but that's where he preaches. And he came so that he could bring his 2 daughters to be a part of the youth weekend. Again, every day that I was with the brethren, we ended with a meal. And this is where we had the meal. It was in a garage that had one light. And the brethren set up tables to give food and tables where we could sit at, and then we would spend the whole day there. So, brethren, I've got to admit that this trip was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I have never been so tired before. And some of you that know me well may be surprised to hear that. Like, I was exhausted mentally, emotionally, and physically. I took on too much work. I should not have agreed to teach all the books that I did and to have done that. Now, what I mean by that is not that I think I made a mistake. I think if given the opportunity to do this again, I wouldn't go by myself. There's a reason that Jesus sent them, I think, in twos and in pairs. I need help. I want help. And maybe you feel disqualified and you're no, I can't do that. I'll help you. But I need help. I can never go back and do all this work by myself. And I don't want to. That's not what the kingdom is about. The kingdom is about us working together. And these were the 2 baptisms that happened. We had Brian. So Brian was invited by Claudia. So Claudia is a single mother. When she became a Christian, her husband left her. And she started a business just reselling clothes. And that's been how she supported her life. She hired Brian 3 months before this photo and was just consistent about talking to him about the Lord. And 3 months later, he's baptized into the Lord. So just, again, don't think you're unimportant. Don't think you can't do anything. You can't tell in this photo. I can show you a different photo if you want to later. She only has one arm. She lost an arm when her oldest son was 12. And she was riding the bus back home from work. The bus flipped, and she lost her arm. And yet she continued telling her kids that God was good. God was good. And I asked her daughter, that was the one that took us to Carl's Jr. When I asked her daughter, how did you become a Christian? She goes, oh, it was my mom. And I was like, what do you mean by that? She goes, my mom had an accident. I'll let her tell you the rest of the story. But she had an accident, and the way that she navigated her life through that accident convinced me that God was real. Just really neat. This lady, you'll remember she is named Luciana. She had been worshiping at Reynosa for 2 years because her daughter worships at Reynosa. And she, in those 2 years, has been exposed to the gospel over and over and over again. So we met on a Friday night. She texted me, and she's like, hey, I have a lot of questions. Can we meet together to where you can answer some of my questions. And I was like, we can absolutely try. I'll try. After about an hour and a half, 2 hours later of answering various questions from various things, she was like, I'm ready. And I was like, for what? I'm ready to become a disciple of Jesus right now. And so she was baptized. If you have doubts, if you're here and you have questions about something, see someone. It's not wrong to have doubts. And maybe you've been worshiping somewhere for several years and you still have doubts. Just talk to someone about them. And maybe you can have those doubts or those questions answered, and you too can become a Christian. I have prayer requests for y'all. This is Anna. If you remember Anna, I met my last time in Reynosa. 10 months ago, I met her in Reynosa. She cut my hair. And I invited her to services, and nothing came of that. Well, coming back, I was like, hey, Anna, I'm in town. Let's get together. Anna, let's get together. Let's get together. Finally, we got together. We had a couple of Bible studies, and she wants to continue studying. So she's very intrigued. We started the Gospel according to Mark, and she's got a lot of questions. She's very intrigued by the Word of God. So I asked prayers for her as her and I continue studying. And then we have Carlo over here. So this was on Thursday after the women's class. So Thursday night, I'm ending the women's class. And Carla, when we got done with the ladies' class, she was outside crying. And I was like, hey, Carla, is everything okay? And she was like, everything's fine. She's a very reserved individual. And she just kept crying. So then I was like, all right, Chelsea, we got to go talk to Carla. So I brought Chelsea along, and I was like, hey, Carla, are you sure everything's okay? You just seem very emotional. One of the pictures earlier was dinner at Carla's house. It was where the green tablecloth was. Her husband had left her at this photo. Her husband is Japanese, and he packed up his bags and was like, I'm done with you. I'm done with the marriage, and went home. And she didn't know what to do. So she talked to her mom, and her mom was like, go to the ladies' study. You need to be around Christians, and you need to tell your family what's going on. So she was there, but she didn't tell anybody. It was cool because I gave her the same advice. I was like, you need to lean upon your family. Go to the people of God. Don't be strong. I was like, that's the most foolish thing you could do, is try to be strong right now. I was like, be vulnerable. Give yourself to your family. Tell them what's happened. They will be there to support you. And it was cool because then Friday morning, she had made an announcement to the congregation, telling them what was happening and what's going on. Her husband still has not returned, and she hasn't heard from him. He's blocked her phone calls. So pray for Carla and her son Leo and her other son Harrison. So we have Carla, Leo, Harrison, and Anna, and her daughter named Anna as well. Given this opportunity, I think it's always neat to get to talk about the Word of God. And I think when you talk about missions, there's a couple things that come to mind. And this is probably the best passage I had for us. And we're going to close out with these thoughts. So Jesus in John 17 spends verses 1 through 12 talking about his mission. God, you sent me. God, you prepared me for this. God, I've done what you've asked me to do. When Jesus in 13 says these things, he's talking about that. God, you prepared me for mission. You prepared me to be sent out. You had a purpose behind what you were doing. So he says, these things I speak in the world so that they may have my joy. Brethren, one of the things I learned from this time in Mexico with my family is God gives us his word, and his word produces joy. But I struggle sometimes in my life to have joy. And I think I finally, at least for right now, figured out why that is. And it's because I'm not busy with mission. I'm not busy being sent out. I'm not busy working the way I ought to. Because God says, when you're focused on being sent out and you understand the purpose I have in sending you out, you're going to be joyful. If you're here tonight and you don't have joy, maybe it's because you lack mission. It is so easy, and I hope you can understand this, but I don't know if you absolutely will. It is so easy for Americans to travel. We can literally go anywhere we want to, and we don't have to have a special visa. We don't have to have special permission, and if we want it, we can get it like that. We have got to be out in the world evangelizing. Now, maybe you can't go to a foreign country, and maybe that terrifies you, and maybe you don't want to because of language barriers. That's fine. Be busy in Tampa. Get to work, and you will experience joy, Jesus says. Your lack of joy might be tied to your lack of mission, but that's not all Jesus says. Verse 18, as you sent me into the world. Maybe we're not busy with mission because we haven't actually encountered Jesus the way God wanted us to encounter Jesus. Because when I know Jesus and I experience Jesus, I am like Jesus. And Jesus says, you sent me, so what do? I send them. When you have a clear view of who God is, of who Jesus is, and the Spirit that He's given us, which is not a spirit of timidity and fear, but one of courage, and you're going to be busy in mission. And you're going to be following the pattern that is set before you. But there's one last thing that I got from this text. This text talks a lot about being sanctified, being made holy. And that seemed really weird to me. In preparing for this, like, why is he talking so much about holiness? And what does that have to do with mission? And this is probably the easiest way I could say it. God is never going to call you into blessing without making you a blessing. There's not going to be a way to be blessed by God where He doesn't expect you to go out and to bless others. God called Abraham so that He could promise him that all nations would be blessed through him. God called Isaiah and promised that through his preaching, others would be converted and affected. God called Jesus to sanctify others. When you understand who Jesus is, you understand that there's joy that comes with being sent out. And you understand that your holiness is meant to help the world. Jesus, when He called the 12 so that He could send them out, He didn't prepare them with sermons. He wasn't like, hey, learn this sermon. He wasn't like, these are the top 10 tricks you need on evangelism. This is how you dissect the text. He said, I'm holy. Here's my holiness. Now go and be holy. That was it. And 12 men changed the world. I think we have more than 12 men here. If we can understand the simple concept of holiness and being holy and being sanctified in truth, man, we could change the world. We could change Tampa. People are not interested in great sermons. People are not interested in great theology. What people are interested in is, are you Christians, in fact, kinder than the rest of the world? Are you Christians, in fact, more generous, more gentle, more compassionate than anyone else in the world? People are interested in seeing our personal holiness. Do you actually believe the things that you teach? So, my simple invitation is to stop living for yourself. Empty yourself. The disciples of Jesus were made for changing the world, to impart His holiness, to be involved in mission. But again, you can't be a blessing to others unless you're blessed. So tonight the invitation is simple. Come in so that you can go out. Come into Christ today so you can go give Christ to others. Come have forgiveness of your sins today so you can be empowered to go provide forgiveness or the hope of forgiveness to others. Come receive the Spirit today so you can go impart the Spirit. Come in so you can go out. In a moment, we're going to sing In Need in Spanish. And I failed to give the AV team the translation that I had, so I'm going to go ahead and give it to you. But the Spanish version of In Need is a little different. I could find of no better song to close tonight with than the song that I taught the brethren down in Reynosa. The words are, give me forgiveness, give me your love. Give me holiness that only comes from the Lord. Give me power, give me your peace. Give me the things that only the Lord can give. Give me Jesus, the faithful Lamb, and my champion, the great I am. He's my song, my petition. You are my God, and I am your creation. So our brother Luke Reeves is going to lead us in this song here just in a second. But if you're here tonight and you are ready to put on Christ in baptism, if you're here tonight and you're ready to change your life, if you're here tonight and you need prayers from the congregation, if you're here tonight and you're ready to be sent out, we want to encourage you to do that. Nothing would make us happier than to give you the hope of an eternal resting home with God. But I also want to close out with saying this last point. There were so many times on my trip where I was ready to kind of just give up. I was tired, like I said. I've never been that tired. Your support, both financially, but as well as in your prayers, encouraged me. Thinking about your face and thinking about what was going on here while I was away encouraged me. And so my final invitation is this. If you're ready to be a part of God's family today, I can think of no better group of people than to be joined to than this group of people. The brethren in Reynosa, thank you. The elders in Reynosa, thank you. The deacons and the families in Reynosa, thank you. They wanted me to tell you this. They said, specifically say this. Thank you for sending us the injection that we needed. I thank you too, brethren. So again, if you're here tonight and you have any needs, you'll have the opportunity to come forward or meet with someone. But let's think about these things as we stand and as we sing the song of encouragement.